Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ancient stones of Rome. We're going to uncover a pretty fascinating story of engineering, blood, and, surprisingly, an architectural legacy that is still with us today. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me because we're looking at the remnants of an empire that literally defined Western civilization. All right, let's just dive right in. So, when you try to picture the ultimate legacy of the Roman Empire, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? Is it the famous emperors, the epic battles, or maybe something built of stone? You see, exploring these layers of history, from the bustling commerce of the Republic to the fiery destruction of the city in 410 CE, it reveals just how much more there is to ancient Rome than those familiar tropes. Today, we're going to look way beyond the obvious to find the true engine of Roman society.
Section 1. Spectacles of the Empire. Engineering the arena. Now, to understand that hidden engine, the absolute most obvious place to start is the Flavian Amphitheater, which, of course, is famously known today as the Colosseum.
Honestly, the sheer staggering scale of this operation is it's mind-blowing. Completed in only 8 years and inaugurated in 80 CE, this massive arena held over 50,000 spectators. Emperor Vespasian built it right over the site of his predecessor Nero's artificial lake, basically giving that prime real estate back to the public. But wow, the cost in blood was immense. Over its 400 years of games, the Colosseum saw the slaughter of an estimated 1 million animals and hundreds of thousands of men. The floor was actually covered in sand to absorb the blood and give the fighters traction. Fun fact, in Latin, the word for sand is arena, which is exactly where we get our modern word arena.
And this next part just brilliantly illustrates their engineering genius. Before the underground tunnels were fully built, the Romans could completely transform this space. They could literally remove the wooden arena floor and flood the entire basin. Using this incredibly complex network of underground aqueduct channels, they'd pipe in massive amounts of water to stage bloody, real-life naval combat, known as naumachia, right smack in the middle of the city. No way, right? These actual ships were crewed by condemned prisoners and slaves who fought to the absolute death until one side was totally wiped out. It was a terrifying, awe-inspiring display of how Rome could completely manipulate its environment.
Then, about a decade after opening, the Colosseum got a massive upgrade beneath that sand. Enter the Hypogeum. This was a hidden, 2-story underground backstage maze filled with tunnels, holding rooms, and animal cages. Imagine hundreds of workers down there, coordinating the entrance of men and beasts using a crazy system of 28 manually operated lifts and secret trapdoors. This complex machinery made gladiators, elaborate props, and exotic animals seemingly appear out of thin air, like magic. So it wasn't just an amphitheater, it was a highly choreographed, perfectly oiled machine built for death and entertainment. Now, the Colosseum was built to be this permanent symbol of power, but, it couldn't fight off geology and time forever. After a massive fire in the 3rd century destroyed the upper deck, it faced its biggest challenge in 1349 CE. A huge earthquake hit and completely collapsed the south wall. And you might wonder, why just the south wall? Well, it turns out the foundation on that side was actually resting on unstable, waterlogged sediment. Go figure. After that collapse, its remaining stones were systematically looted. For centuries, lime burners literally melted down its precious marble, and popes carted away its travertine blocks to build palaces like the Palazzo Venetia. And yep, even St. Peter's Basilica.
Section 2. The real Roman engine, the heart of the Roman Forum. So the arena is undeniably famous, but is it the true legacy of Rome? Let's pivot. Because the true, enduring engine of Rome wasn't the arena of death at all. It was the bustling, pragmatic heart of the city, the Roman Forum. This was the valley nestled beneath the Capitoline and Palatine hills, just constantly humming with the vibrant life of daily Roman affairs.
Let's really contrast these two core Roman concepts for a second. The arena, that was ultimately a massive propaganda machine. It was bred in circuses, a spectacle designed to distract the masses, reinforce strict social hierarchies, and visually prove the emperor's absolute control over life, death, and nature itself. But the basilica was different. It was the pragmatic engine of law, commerce, civic duty, and public order. It was the place where the actual, literal gears of the empire turned on a daily basis.
Which brings us to Section 3, the law machine, inside the Basilica Aemilia. Let's zoom in on the Roman Forum itself and take a look at the Basilica Aemilia.
Alongside the Basilica Julia, this was the largest public building in the bustling Forum, and it was definitely not a place for bloody spectacle. It was a place for serious, everyday civic business. Crucially, and this is a really important distinction to make, a basilica in ancient Rome was not originally a religious site. I know, when we hear that word today, we immediately picture a grand, quiet church. But back then, it was an incredibly noisy courthouse, a frenzied stock exchange, and a massive public meeting hall, all rolled up into one giant roofed structure. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a downtown financial district and the Supreme Court, smashed together under one roof. Today, if you visit Rome, only its foundations and a few lonely fragments of the Basilica Aemilia remain. It's so easy to just walk past them and see nothing but a ruin. But guys, that would be a huge mistake. The Basilica Aemilia represents the very essence of Roman pragmatism. It was not a place for gods, it was a place for people. It was a space specifically designed to manage the immense everyday complexities of a sprawling million-person urban society. It handled the messy contracts, the bitter disputes, the trade, and the laws that actually kept the empire functioning day in and day out.
Section 4, From Courthouse to Church, a Blueprint for Eternity. You see, the influence of this secular law machine didn't just end when its roof eventually caved in. It survived by hiding in plain sight.
Fast forward a bit. When the Roman Empire eventually embraced Christianity and Emperor Constantine began his massive church-building program, he ran into a practical problem. He needed a blueprint for a structure that could hold a huge congregation indoors for liturgy. Now, he didn't turn to the design of traditional Roman temples. Those were mostly just meant to house a statue of a god while the public stood outside. Instead, Constantine and other early builders turned to the proven design of civic buildings, like the Basilica and the Imperial audience halls.
And this is just such a brilliant example of architectural recycling. They took the highly effective design of the civic basilica and adapted it perfectly for their needs. Just look at this architectural DNA transfer. They kept the long central nave, which was perfect for the congregation. They kept the side aisles to serve as walkways. They utilized the clerestory lighting to illuminate the massive space. And that apse at the end, where the Roman magistrate once sat to pass judgment, that became the sanctuary for the altar. It was quite literally the perfect architectural model for a church.
As historians often point out, both the word itself and the physical architecture were entirely repurposed. They transferred the fundamental DNA of Roman administration straight into the future. So from old St. Peter's Basilica, which was built by Constantine himself, all the way to the great towering cathedrals of the Middle Ages, and even the churches sitting in our own towns today, the blueprint of the Roman civic basilica absolutely lives on. So the very next time you hear the word basilica, do me a favor, don't just think of a church. Think of its ancestor. Think of a noisy, crowded, and incredibly powerful engine of commerce and law, just humming with the vibrant life of the Roman Forum. Remember the Basilica Aemilia. It's a building that beautifully demonstrates that the most enduring legacies of Rome aren't just found in its epic battles or its legendary emperors. They're found in its practical, ingenious solutions to the timeless, everyday challenges of civilization.
If you find these forgotten layers of history as absolutely fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Through this explainer, we're constantly digging deep into the past to bring these lost worlds right back to life. And hey, let us know down in the comments, what other overlooked ancient Roman building do you think deserves its very own story? Thank you so much for exploring the true foundations of Rome with me today. I'll catch you in the next one.